Hello everybody and welcome back to another Blender Made Easy tutorial. Today we're going to be creating a lighthouse. And if you go to Google and you type in lighthouse, there's many different options. You can choose to model whatever lighthouse that you want, but I found this image right here and I really like it. And it might be a render, I don't know, but I think it looks really cool. So the end result is going to look like this image on the screen. And yeah, so let's get started. First thing, delete the cube and then add in a cylinder. So press Shift A and add in a cylinder. Alright, and then we're going to split this view by dragging these three lines right here across and bring it out a little bit more, and then click this drop down menu, or this menu, and click UV image editor. And I'm going to open up that reference image that I have. So open it up, go find it. It should be right here, and open. Alright, so this looks pretty complicated, like there's a bunch of wires and railings and all this stuff up here. It's really not that hard to do. All we have to do is add in like a circle, extrude, and then add a wireframe modifier. It's pretty simple. And this window I'm not going to worry about. You can do that on your own time if you want to make a window, and also this building down here. We're just going to be focusing on the lighthouse and getting the glass up there, this thing, and all this stuff. Alright, so let's go into front view by pressing 1, then 5 on the number pad, and then we're going to scale this up. So press S, then Z, and then scale it up somewhere like around there. Alright, then go into edit mode, press Z to go into wireframe, deselect everything by pressing A, and then draw a box with B around these vertices, and scale them down. We want to make it so it comes inward just a little bit. Something like that. It doesn't have to match this exactly. I'm just going to kind of go with my own sort of thing. Scale it down maybe a little bit more. That's probably good right there. And then I'm going to bring it up so it's like right on the grid floor. Okay, cool. So let's get started with the modeling. We're going to model this little thing right here, and then we're going to go up and out and in, then up. Alright, and that's pretty easy. First, we're going to bring this down, and then we're going to model this part. So just kind of make it, like, eyeball it, try to figure out if that's the right spot, maybe a little bit lower. That's probably good right there. Alright, zoom in on this image, and then shift middle mouse to pan the view. Okay, so first, press E to extrude, and then scale out. We're going to be doing this a lot of times. E to extrude, and then scale it up, just like that. E, and then, actually that one, yeah, we have to do one more. And then E to extrude and scale it back in. Kind of imagine where this would be and then extrude it up. Somewhere around there. That's just probably right. And now we're going to do this part right here. So press E, scale it out, something like that. And this part is a railing. So look on the top and scale it out to where you would think a railing would be. Something about that, maybe a little bit less than that. Right about there is probably good. Then extrude it up. Then E to extrude, right click, and then scale it down, and then E to extrude again. We have this little thing in the middle, E, scale, and then extrude it up. Just like that. And now we have to extrude it in, scale all the way in, kinda somewhere around there is probably good. Just kinda imagine it, eyeball it, and then extrude this part up. A little bit more, probably around, I'm guessing there, this part right here. And then we have to do this little like railing top bit. So E, scale, extrude, E, right click, scale, and extrude. And then one more time, scale inwards and extrude up. Perfect, there we have it. Good, and these railings and this glass part we're gonna add as separate objects, so don't worry about those right now. Click smooth shading on this cylinder, and then we're going to add an edge split modifier. So come over to the modifier tab, click add modifier, and edge split. Good, look at that. That is looking really nice and crisp. Alright, so now we're going to do these little support beams. So go into a new layer by clicking the little box right there, or the little square, and then add in a plane. So press Shift A, mesh, and plane. We're going to rotate this plane by 90 degrees. So press R, then X, then 90, and enter. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so go into edit mode and then right click on this vertice, and we're going to delete it. Next, press A to select everything, and click E, then right click and scale it inwards. Just like that. Now I'm going to right click on this one, right click on this one, and this one, and press F, and that will create a face between these. And then I'm going to add in a lot of vertices right here by pressing Control R, then using the scroll wheel. I'm going to go with 11 vertices. Make sure there's one right in the middle. Make sure it's an odd number. Then right click and then shift right click on these two, turn on proportional editing, and then move these back. So press G, and with your scroll wheel you can zoom up and zoom in. And also I want to change this to connected instead of enabled, because that will just do the connected vertices and not the ones over here. So press G and make it so it's like a nice curve. Something around there. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is just going to be a small detail, but something like that is probably good. Actually, you know what I forgot to do? Hold on, Control Z that. Control Z, Control Z. We have to move these back. So bring them back, something around there. And then also bring this one up. Turn off proportional editing, press G, Z, and then bring that up so it fits. There we go, that's what I want. Then press Control R and add in a bunch of vertices. And I'm just gonna go with 9. It doesn't have to be that many. Then turn back this connected, right click, shift right click, and then move these. Something like that. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Alright, now go into edit mode, press Shift A, and add in a circle. Rotate this circle by 90 degrees, and then scale it down. Scale it down, there we go. And then position it something around there. Oh, right about there. And then press I to inset. Actually, don't press I, press E, but first turn off proportional editing. Then press E, right click, and scale inwards. Okay, good. There we go. We got our thing. There's a little bit of a circle right there, and so that's why I added this. And then we're going to extrude this back. So extrude it back right about there, give it some thickness, and then press A once or twice to select everything, and then we have to fix the normals because right now they're totally messed up. So you can do this by hitting Control N, and now the shading is good. Great. So now press Shift 1, and that will bring back our first layer. Go into the front view and position this up here. We have to zoom in here and scale it down. Place it right about there. Scale it down a little bit more and position it. Make sure it's just a little bit inside and then not sticking out, and a little bit in the top as well. Now go into the side view and then position it right in the center. It's already in the center, but we need to move it a little bit more. So position it right there. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be doing is adding a empty and using that as a offset for an array modifier, and then we're going to move it around this sphere. And if you have no idea what that means, don't worry about it, I will show you. The first thing that we need to do is right click on this and position the origin point of our support in the center. That's really important. If the origin point's way out here, the array modifier isn't going to work as well. So go into edit mode, alt right click this ring, and then press Shift S, cursor to selected. Now it's in the center, and now we can right click on our support, press Control Alt Shift C, Control Alt Shift C, and click origin to 3D cursor, and that will snap it to right there. Now we can add in our array modifier. So click Add Modifier, Array. Change the relative offset to 0, and now we have to add in an empty. So press Shift A and click Empty Plane Axes. And then right click on here, and since we scaled the plane down, if we were to click Object Offset and then click the empty, it's going to look really weird. It's rotated and it's scaled completely wrong. So what we need to do is apply the scale and the rotation. So click Control A, rotation, and then Control A and scale. Good. Now once we rotate this, it's going to be the right size. And since the origin point is in the center of this, it's going to rotate completely around the cylinder. Exactly what I want. Alright, go into the top view and then rotate, and holding down Control, I'm going to go, let's go 20 degrees. Then right click on your support and turn up this count, and it will go all the way around. One more, 18. Look at that, very easy, and we don't have to duplicate it a bunch of times and go around. This is a very simple and easy way to do. Alright, so now let's move on to this railing. So we have to press Shift A, add in a mesh and circle, and then we got to scale this circle down to fit where this railing would be. Bring it up a little bit, and then scale it out right about there. Looks pretty good. And now we have to extrude it up and add some geometry. So go into edit mode and click E to extrude. Bring it up about right there, kind of like halfway between this and this. Yeah, that's probably good right there. And then go into edit mode, select everything, and press W and click subdivide. This will give it some more geometry. Yeah, do I want one more? Let's see what it looks like with the wireframe modifier right now. So click add modifier and wireframe. Look at that. That looks pretty cool. I'm gonna bring the thickness down just a little bit and then bring this into the ground. I think that's good right there. I like that. If you want to add more geometry, go ahead and do it. Go into edit mode and click W, but I'm gonna leave it right there for now. Next thing I'm gonna do is add in this railing up top. So press Shift A, mesh, and circle, and then move it up. Position it, actually before you move it, turn the vertices down to 16. Okay, because it looks like there's 16 things going around. I'm just guessing, but it's not 32. So scale this down and then bring it up top. Scale down and down a little bit. Go into edit mode and E to extrude. Position it right about there, and Control A, fix the normals with Control N, and then add in the wireframe. Look at that. I'm gonna make it go in just like that. It's perfect, exactly what I want. I'm gonna turn up the thickness just a little bit though, just a little. Yeah, look at that, very cool. Alright, so now let's move on to this part. This is pretty easy as well. I'm just gonna, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna add in another circle, leave it at 16 vertices, and then move it up. Place it right there and scale it inwards. Look up top and make sure it is a little bit less than the outer railing. Go into edit mode on, there it is. Bring it up first, right about there. Go into edit mode and extrude it up. I'm gonna go right there, and it looks like from just looking at this, there's 3 different faces, 1, 2, and 3. So go into front view on this one, and the first one is right here, the second one, and then this third one, the taller one, I'm gonna go somewhere around there. Make sure this one's a little bit taller than the middle one. That's probably good. And then click add modifier, wireframe. And instead of just replacing the entire thing, I just want the wireframe and the mesh to be together. So if you uncheck replace original, that will fix it. And then we need to fix the normals as well. So Control N on that. Great. And now I'm going to add in the roof. So Shift A, circle, where is it at? Right there, circle, and then bring it up. And it looks like this is a little bit thicker, or a little bit wider than this, so I'm just gonna go somewhere around there. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna scale it down to fit it, and then I'll scale it up because it looks like it goes up and then out. So go into edit mode, extrude it up, then press E, right click, scale it out, extrude, E, scale, and extrude, and then I'm gonna press E, extrude it up, and scale it inwards. Right about there. Something like that. That looks pretty similar. Make sure it's in, and fix the normals by pressing Control N. Great. Now I'm gonna Alt right click on this part and extrude this up a little bit. E, scale it inwards, extrude it up along the Z, E, scale, extrude it up along the Z. Awesome. And this as well, I'm going to do the wireframe and uncheck replace original. Cool. One last thing that we need to do is add in a UV sphere, bring that up and scale it in, up and scale. Position it right on the top bit, kind of just eyeball it. Does that look like the right size? Maybe a little bit more. Something like that. Yeah, and then what we can do is go into edit mode, Alt right click this top part, and then Shift right click in the middle and extrude this up. Look at that, we got it. That looks pretty cool, and this is way too thick, so I'm gonna go into edit mode, Alt right click, or Shift Alt and then right click, and then press S, Shift Z, and then scale this inwards. So it's just like a wire. Look at that, we have our lighthouse. That is looking really cool. Alright, so now let's work on the materials. The materials aren't that difficult, just a little bit of texturing and some shaders and everything will be good. So I'm gonna leave this window open so I can view what I'm looking at. Alright, so bring this out and then click on the material button. Right click on this to select it and click new. The first material that I'm gonna be adding is a concrete material. So name this one concrete. Click this little menu and click image texture. Open. And this image is down in the description, so go get it. This one right here. Click open. I'm also going to split this view and then click here and go to the node editor. This will be easier to work with. Press N to close this panel and zoom in. Alright, so what I want to do is add in a glossy shader and then also change the color of the texture just a little bit. Alright, so press Shift A, mix shader, and right there. Then press Shift A again and glossy shader. Plug that in and change the factor to 0.1. Great. Then press Shift A and add in a color, hue, saturation. And I'm going to drop down this preview so I can see what it looks like. The value I want to come up just a little bit. I'm going to go maybe 1.4, maybe 1.5. Yeah, 1.5 looks pretty good. What happens if I turn up the saturation? Yeah, I'm gonna go 0.9 on the saturation. Okay, let's come down here a little bit and let's see what's next. This right here is just a black glossy diffuse shader, so I'm gonna add that in. Click the little plus sign, click new, and I'm just gonna call this one black glossy. Then this is pretty easy. You probably know what to do. Shift A, add in a mix shader and glossy shader, of course. Right there. Plug this in and then change the factor to 0.1 and the color of the diffuse to something dark. Do not go all the way black. Go a little bit less than that. Something like this is probably good. Alright, let's zoom in here and apply this to this part. So go into the front view, box select this part by pressing B, and then click assign. What I'm also going to do is change the settings. The color, I'm going to change it to this, and I did that by clicking this little eyedropper tool and clicking this, and so now there's the black glossy shader. It looks like this part is glossy, black glossy as well, so box select it and click assign, and then this part up here, all of this actually is black glossy, so click assign. The railing is too, so click the drop down menu, black glossy, and the railing up here, this one is also that same material. And then the supports right there. Cool. So now that's looking pretty cool. You know what, I think this might be a little bit too dark, so I'm gonna bring it up just a tad. That looks good. Alright, now let's work on the glass material. So right click on this one and click new. I'm gonna call this glass, and this is pretty easy. Just add in a glass shader right there and then plug this in. Very simple. Then click the little plus sign, click this drop down menu and click black glossy, and you'll know why I did that. Come over to the modifier and click this little material offset to 1, and the wireframe will have the black glossy material. That's exactly what I want. And then all three of these have the same, or two of these have the same material. So black glossy, and then this one black glossy. Awesome. And right now, if we were to render it, you wouldn't be able to see the texture, and that's because we haven't UV unwrapped it yet. So right click on this, press A once or twice to select everything, and then press U and click Smart UV Project, and click OK. So now once we go into the textured view and zoom in here, you can see the texture, but it's way too big. So I'm going to close that. I'm just going to get rid of this, then select everything and scale it up. Scale it up really big. How does that look? I think it still needs to be scaled up like that. That looks pretty good. Let me get a drink of water real quick. That looks cool. Alright, now let's add in the plane. So press Shift A and add in the plane, and then bring it down to the ground. Okay, this plane we're going to be adding a lot of geometry to it. We're going to be adding a particle system for the grass, and then also a displacement modifier to give it some bump. So get rid of this window and then scale up the plane. I'm going to go for something around there. And the next thing I'm going to do is position the camera so I know where to add the bumps on the plane and then also where to add the particles. So go into the front view, and I'm going to go somewhere around here and then press Control-Alt-0. Right click on your camera and then bring it down. Something like this. I'm going to go really close to the ground, and then I'm going to press R and then rotate. Something like this. I'm also going to come over here and click the composition guides and click thirds. And thirds it's the rule of thirds, and what that means is you want to position your focus and your subject where these corners are. So this one right here, this one, or this one. You never want it to be centered. An image looks a lot better if it's following these rules. Okay, so go like this, kind of position it, G, middle mouse to zoom out. Something like this. I also think this is too tall, so I'm going to grab it, deselect that one, and bring it down a little bit. Yeah, and then bring the camera down. Scale that up. Okay, cool. So go into edit mode, press W, and click subdivide. I'm going to do this a bunch of times. One more time, one more. And then I'm going to add in the displacement modifier. So click add modifier, and where is it at? Displacement. Click new. And then we have to apply the scale. So press Control A and click Scale. Then go into the texture panel, click this drop down menu and click Clouds. This is the one that we're going to be using. And right now it looks pretty bad, so I'm going to bring the strength way down, somewhere around there, and then I'm also going to click Smooth Shading. Cool. Then go into edit mode, and then we're going to kind of play around with how it's positioned on our lighthouse. So I'm going to bring it over here so it's underneath the camera, and then go into edit mode, right click on this face, go turn this on to enabled, and then kind of just play around with how tall this is, and kind of go like this. Just mess around with this, make it look kind of cool. Somewhere around there, maybe bring this one up. Nice. Something like that. Just kind of move around and mess with the terrain. Just get it uneven. We don't want a flat plane. That doesn't look very good. Maybe this can come up just a little bit more. Something like that. Yeah, that looks cool. Nice. Alright, so now let's add the particle system. So come over here and click New. And actually, you know what? Before we do this, I'm going to add in the texture to this ground. So click New. Click this drop down menu and click Image Texture. Actually, change this to Mix Shader, Diffuse, and Glossy. Diffuse and Glossy. We don't even have to open up the UV image editor. We can do this right here. The diffuse, I'm going to change it to an image texture. Click Open, and this texture is in the description, so go grab that as well. This one right here. Click Open, and then also I forgot we need to UV unwrap it. So go into edit mode, click U, and unwrap. The factor, I'm going to actually change it to 0.03 because I think it's too much glossy. Open up the UV image editor and scale it up. So press S, scale it up really big. Let's zoom in here and see what this looks like. Still too big, scale it up. A little bit more. Yeah, that looks good right there. How does that look in the... Yeah, cool. Alright, now we're ready to add in the particle system. So click this and change this to hair, and then click Advanced. Alright, there's many different options with this, and I'll show you exactly what to do to make the grass look pretty cool. So click Random, and the hair length I'm going to turn way down. Something around there I think is good. So a little bit less. Yeah, probably 0.07. Then come down here to the Brownian, bring this Brownian up just a little bit, maybe 0.2, and come down here to the display and change this. Actually, we'll do that later. Come down here to the children's and click Simple. And what children's does, it takes one particle and then surrounds it by how many you say. Right now it's set to 100, and I forgot to change this, and I clicked rendered, and it rendered 100 times the amount of particles that I did. So make sure you change this to maybe like 20, and that will fix it. Okay, so grass, it doesn't go like straight up, it kind of splits into different things, and that's what the clump is for. I'm going to bring it down to 0.7 or 0.6, somewhere around there. I think it looks pretty cool. And then also, actually, I think this is too tall, so come up here and change it to 0.4. Okay? Then come back down here and just mess around with some of these settings. The length, I'm going to go something like that. The threshold, some of these settings, I have no idea what they do. This radius, though, I want to bring that up. 0.2, that's probably good right there. The roundness, okay. The size, let's see. A lot of these settings, I have no idea what they do. I just kind of mess around with them. The endpoint, yeah. Okay, that's probably fine right there. The shape, what does that do? Okay, radius, do I want to... I'm going to change this to 0.05. That, I think, is a good radius. And yeah, that's looking more like grass. Cool. So now that is fine. I'm going to zoom out, and now I'm going to apply a vector group, or a vertex group, I mean, not a vector group, a vertex group, and this will be used to set the particles in the right spot. Because right now, if we were to render it, there'd be particles over here, over there, and like over there, and they don't need to be there because the camera is not going to be looking at them. So it's just going to waste time and memory on your computer. To fix this, go into Weight Paint, and then go into the top view, and then zoom out. Press T to open up the properties panel, or the tool panel, I mean. Click Weight Gradient, and then drag where your camera is and drag it out. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to do that one more time. Drag it out a little bit past, something like that. Cool. And then go into the camera view, and what you can do is change the weight to 0, and I'm going to press F to bring up, to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to paint outside of the camera view. So like this, I'm going to come over here and back. That was looking good. Oh, I did way too much right there. Hold on. Zoom in, kind of paint. Oh, still too much. It's a little bit finicky sometimes, but try to do your best at it. Something like that. And then what you can do is come over here and then paint the rest out. This is looking really weird. Fix that. Kind of go like that, right about there. Zoom in so you can give it more detail, like that. Looking good, and just paint all the way around. Where the blue is will be no particles, and where the red is will be where the most of the particles are. So we don't really need particles way out here, so that's why I did the weight gradient. So there's not as many over here, but they're closer to the camera, there's a lot more. I'm going to press Z and then do this. Cool. Look at that. Alright, so now we're going to apply this. So come over to your particle system, the vertex group, the density, and group, and that will fix it. There we go. So now there is still a couple over here. Hold on, get rid of that. I don't need that there. That'll fix it. Cool. Yep, and maybe a little bit right there. There's still some over here. Get rid of that. Vertex, paint. Yeah. And I don't need some behind here because you won't be able to see it since it's like a hill, so I can get rid of those as well. And yeah, very cool. Go back into object mode, and now I'm going to set the display to like 5%, and then I'm going to turn up the particles way, way higher. I'm going to go with like 40,000, I think. 40,000, I think, is a good number. And it's set to 5% view, and that's just in the 3D view. It's not in the rendered. The rendered will be 100%, so you don't need to worry about that. Cool. And now let's set the material for the grass. So come up here, and click New. Now we are going to need the UV, or not the UV, the node editor for this, because this is a little bit more complex material. Alright, I'm going to add in a mix shader. So click Shader, Mix, where is it at? Drop that in, and then I'm going to add in a glossy. Position it right there and click right there. The next thing I'm going to do is add an add shader, and then where did that diffuse go? Way out there. I'm going to add in an add shader and then a translucent shader, and this will help just make the grass look a lot better. Plug that in, And the factor of this I'm going to change to 0.1. The next thing I'm going to do is add in a gradient, and I can do that by using a color ramp node. So go to converter, color ramp, and place it right there. Take the color output, plug that in right there, and actually not that one. Okay, so now I'm going to add in a node, come over here and change this to like a green color. I'm going to go something like that, bring it down. Why did that do that? Right about there. Okay, then I'm going to add the same thing, bring it over here, and then I'm going to go a little bit lighter. Yeah, right about there, looks cool. And then I'm going to leave the white because at the tip I want a little bit of a white. I think this could go a little bit darker actually, a little bit darker. A little less saturated as well. Yeah, something like that. That's looking pretty cool. Awesome. And now we need to add in a hair info node so Blender knows that this is the material for the particles. So go to input, hair info, and then take the intercept and plug that in. Okay, that should do it. And also I want to plug this in actually. I think that's what I did. Yeah. Alright. Great. Right click on your plane to select it, come over to the particle system, and where this material is, change this to 2. And now the grass will have this material. Great. Alright, now let's do the lighting. So go into the top view. I'm going to use this lamp. I'm going to change it to a sun lamp. I'm going to rotate it something around there and position it right about there. Go into this view, rotate it up. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Make sure it's positioned right on our lighthouse. Click use nodes and change the strength to 3. And then I'm going to give it a warm look. Something like this. Let's see what this looks like. Nice. That's looking pretty cool. I think it needs to be rotated a little bit this way. Yeah, so there's less light right there. Nice. Alright, now the world. Okay, this is, I'm going to be using an HDR. Where is it? Right there. Alright. And this HDR, I can't give it away, but there's a website where you can get similar HDRs, so that is the link down in the description. So press Shift A, once you find an HDR, click Environment Texture, and plug that in. Click Open, and go to HDR, and 16 is the one that I want. Cool. So now if I render this right now, you'll be able to see it. But I want this part over here, and I can rotate this by adding a texture coordinate right about there, and then add in a mapping node. So go to Vector, Mapping, plug that in, take the generate, take the generate out, plug that into the vector, take this out, and plug that into there. So now once we rotate this, you'll be able to rotate the view. So go something, it's a little bit slow. I'm going to go into layer 3 so I can see it better, so it goes a lot faster. Where is it at? Come on, keep going. Wait, there it is. There's where I want. A little bit less. Oh, something like that, because this is where sun's going to be, and that's where I want it. And I don't want to be able to see this part. So I'm going to bring the Y up. No, not the Y. I'm going to bring the X up. Yeah, the X up, so we won't be able to see that. Awesome. And you know what? I want to do one more thing with the node editor. I'm going to change the saturation down just a little bit on this color so it's not so saturated. So add in a hue saturation node, and then the saturation I'm going to bring down to 0.8. That looks pretty cool. Alright, so there we have it. We got our particles, we got our materials, the land, and yeah, the last thing that we're going to be doing before we render is using some depth of field on our camera. So come down here and click, where is it at? Cylinder. Change the aperture to f-stop, and I found that like 4 or 5, somewhere around there works pretty well. I'm also going to turn on high quality, and we'll see how this looks. So press Shift Z, and it'll render. Nice, that looks pretty cool. I might change this up actually to maybe 3. Alright, one last thing that I forgot to do when we were modeling the lighthouse is add in a cylinder in the middle of our lighthouse. So press Shift A, add in a cylinder, and scale it down. Position it right in the middle, somewhere around there, then go into edit mode, bring it up, press E to extrude, scale it in, E, scale, something like that. I'm also going to scale along the Shift Z. Alright, where did it go? It's not in the middle. Where the heck is it? It's way over there. Bring it in right there, zoom in on it, and position it. Okay, this is going to be using, oh, I didn't want to do that. This is going to be using the glass shader. Then I'm going to click the little plus, click this drop down menu, and click black glossy. I'm going to add the wireframe modifier and then set the material offset to 1. So click wireframe, material offset to 1, and uncheck replace original. Great. Then press Shift S, click cursor to selected, and one more thing that we're going to be adding is a lamp. So click lamp and point, and it's way too bright right now, so I'm going to turn down the strength to like 8. I think that will be pretty cool. Alright, so now it is ready to render. So come over to the render panel, scroll down, the sampling, I'm going to turn both the clamp indirect and direct to 3, leave the samples at 120, and then click render, but save it before you do. I'm just going to call this tutorial, and then click render. Okay, the render is done, and the first thing that I noticed is that there needs to be a lot more particles, and then also the ground is a little bit flat. So go into the 3D view, and I also want to bring this down a little bit and then closer to the ground so we can see more of the grass. So I'm going to right click on this one, bring it up a little bit, turn on proportional editing, kind of like position them over here. How does that look? Nice. But the lighthouse is cut off a little bit, so I'm going to rotate this up just a tad. Something around there. Looks cool. And then I'm going to go into weight paint mode and get rid of all of the extra particles that we don't need in the scene. So go weight paint, come over here, press Z, and then paint over top. I'm going to go something like this. There we go. And yep, that looks perfectly fine. A little bit more though. Alright, there we go. And then I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. Something like that. Maybe this part down some more. Let's just see how that looks. Cool. And then I'm going to hit render one more time. Alright, look at that. That looks much better than the first one. Let me show you the before and then the after once we position the camera closer to the ground. That looks much better. Alright, let's jump over to the compositing. And right now, make sure that you click use nodes and backdrop and click Control Shift left click, and that will snap a viewer node into place. Alright, so now we're going to be doing some color grading, some contrast, and making some glare and doing some cool effects. So the first thing is the glare. So go to filter and glare, plug that in right here. Make sure this is set in there. And let's zoom in here. Alright, that looks okay right now. I want to bring the angle offset so it's angled just a little bit. And then also the fade I'm going to bring down. Or am I going to bring up? Yeah, up. And then the streaks I'm going to set to 2. Let's see. The angle is the wrong angle now. I need to bring it back. Look at that. That looks pretty nice. And then the threshold I'm going to bring down a little bit. Cool. So that gives it a nice glare. And then I'm going to Shift D this and change it to fog glow. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. That gives it a nice look. Cool. And then I'm going to add in a color balance node. So press Shift A, color balance, plug that in right there, and drop that into the composite. Okay, so the first node, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit into the orange. That will give it a nice orange look. Same thing for this one, I'm going to bring down. And then this one, I think I'm going to go up into the blue. Actually, let's see what both of them looks like, just to see which one looks better. Okay, I like that one better. How does this look if it's in the blue? No, I like all of them down into the warmer colors. Awesome. Alright, then bring that over here. The next thing is a brightness contrast node. Plug that in, and then bring the contrast up to maybe 0.4 or so. I think that will be good. That's too much, maybe 0.3. The brightness I'm going to bring down to 0.3. Let's see how that looks. You know what? I don't think I like this node. I liked it in my test render and practice tutorial, but I don't really like it in this one. Okay, so next I'm going to add in a color mix and then do a vignette. So press Shift A, where is it at? Distort, lens distortion, and then filter, blur. Okay, plug that in. Change this to 1, change this to fast, relative, Y, both of these 20% like we usually do, and then plug it in. Multiply, and I'm going to use the factor of 0.7. Let's just see. Yeah, 0.7 looks pretty good. Alright, you know, I think it might be a little bit too saturated, so I'm going to add a hue saturation node and bring the saturation to 0.9. I think that will make it look a little bit better. And value, maybe down. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Alright, let's go back to the defaults. So there's our first one, and once we added the composite, there we go. Look at that. That looks pretty cool. Well, that is going to be it for this tutorial. Thank you all for watching. If you made it to the end, go post your image on Twitter or tweet it to me, and I'll be sure to like and comment on it. Alright, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. Goodbye.